So here's a suggested layout for a final presentation on this project. And I'll zoom in and we can go through each element piece by piece. So let me just zoom in here. I guess we could look at this project as an exploration of layouts, placements of rooftop units, all for aesthetic appearance and issues, and some discussion with our HVAC contractor and or consultant. So I've called it an HVAC layout exploration. And the first drawing I provide is a location of the rooftop unit on the roof. And I also provide another drawing right here which shows the ground plane view at the building and the position of the rooftop unit. And the issue there is whether there's a need for masking or covering it up. Below that I have an interior shot of the layout. It looks very busy, and I think we should think about that and address that issue. There's a lot of diffusers for an open space. If that was office space, it really wouldn't matter. You wouldn't see those. They'd be hidden in a ceiling plane. But on the sheet I've also included a section of that level 2 with the diffusers and all of the ductwork showing, piping layout. I've cut a couple of sections so that we can gather some information. One is just an overall relationship of the air handler unit to the ductwork. And then I detail in here to describe the relationships between the floor and the ceiling and that. And I raised the roof level of this project up a little bit. If I was to go to the south elevation here, we can see, excuse me, I've changed these numbers. Top of steel now is 26 feet and level 3 is 28 feet. Mostly just to get a little breathing room. Back to the drawing. I think one of the powers of Revit, just the ability to communicate this kind of information. So I've made the roof, I've hidden the roof. I'm showing the steel work. I'm showing the duct work. I'm showing the placement of the HVAC. And I'm discussing here this idea of the additional placement of steel to support the rooftop unit. So that all happens in that large drawing. And then here I have a couple of detailed drawings. One is just a view of that cutaway unit or that rooftop unit, and I want you to label that item. And I want you to add any labels that you think are pertinent or descriptive. I want you to then look at this one, and you'll see I've called off a bunch of items in here, and I would want you to put the proper terms on those or the ones that you think they are. So that gives us an overall view of a sheet layout. And now just to throw an extra curve, and I've exported this at 8,000 pixels, so it's under 1 megabyte. That gives a crisp sheet for me to review on my computer screen. And once I was completed, obviously I was really disturbed by the idea of how busy the ceiling plane came. And I wondered, well, what has happened here that other people haven't experienced? Well, how come their ceilings look a lot cleaner, so to speak? And so I just pull in a couple of them here. Let me open up one and drag it onto the screen. So here's a screenshot of an open space. Let me zoom in here. And you can learn now, after you've done your layout, you can come back and look at this in a little more of an informed way. You can see that the ductwork, in this case they use a wall diffuser system, so they've got this little slot, and you can see the piping going to the units. You can also see these are either distributions or return airs to other places, but there's very few things dropping down in the ceiling plane. So that's one example. Let's see if I have the other image here. I'll close this one off, and I have one other one that I thought was interesting. And why I believe this is interesting is that we have no drops. We have no diffusers that are coming down to the ceiling plane. The diffusers are placed right within the spiral tubular metalwork. So here we have a much cleaner, albeit maybe just as much stuff up in the sky, but as you can see now they're long linear items, a lot less distracting components there, except for this really huge long return air. But I think the idea of, we've got this cable management system. This is a tray where cables are placed in. We have lights that are coming down below that plane, just to kind of define space. And the lines are strong and well coordinated with the rest of the room layout. So with that in mind, I went back and said, well, what could we do to enhance our HVAC layout? So I saved the file, and then using BIM, I just greatly simplified that whole thing. So here's the new layout, and oops, I can compare them. You can actually flip back and forth, right? Which is a great feature here. So I'm going between image 1 and image 2 because they're right next to each other. And you can see that I've now, I would actually modify this. I'm not showing that outside tube pipe or a supply component, but you can now see the removal of all these parts and pieces, now the simplification of the supply to feeding out to both of these sides. And it was just a matter of doing one change, and all the drawings can then go back and reflect that change. So I'd encourage you to try the same thing. Simplify your save your drawing again, simplify the layout, and resubmit it in a new version. So that's the overview of the submittal, and I hope you will enjoy the process and learn from it as I have.